Co-chairs McGovern and Halgren, members of the Commission, thank you for your continued focus on Sudan and for inviting me to testify today. And I would like to request that my full testimony, which is available, can be admitted in the record.
Without objection, all the testimonies will be included in the record.
Thank you, sir. On January 13 of this year, the Obama administration eased almost all U.S. sanctions on Sudan. It said the Sudanese government had made improvements in 5 areas or tracks. It said that easing U.S. sanctions would give the Sudanese government reasons to keep improving conditions in the country. But there are 3 big problems with what the Obama administration did. First, it removed one of the greatest sources of leverage the U.S. government has to achieve its policy objectives with Sudan, at a time when the sanctions were beginning to work. Second, the executive order was issued as a last-minute gesture by an outgoing administration that would have no control over what happens next. Third, the Sudanese government didn't deserve such a gesture. It has not made meaningful progress on the 5 tracks. It still has not made the kind of progress to justify the easing of or lifting of sanctions. 2 key things were missing from the Obama administration's 5 tracks. 1, improvement of the internal human rights condition in Sudan, and number 2, a genuine comprehensive peace effort to permanently end Sudan's conflicts. This was a deeply flawed policy decision in both design and execution. It undermines U.S. foreign policy objectives. It gives away U.S. leverage for nothing beyond a potential short-term counterterrorism gain. It does nothing to address the structural issues in Sudan. The human rights protections and democracy demands of the Sudanese people were not even part of the plan. War, repression, human rights violations, and dictatorship have continued in the months since the Sudanese government's supposed positive actions that justify the sanctions easing first began. In Darfur, for example, the government and its militia had launched violent attacks, including some involving chemical weapons in Jabal Mara that Amnesty International documented. Militias terrorized people throughout Darfur, and even though there is no ground offensive at the moment in South Kordofan and Blue Nile, but the Antonovs continue to circle overhead. They hold all activities below. They send people running for shelter, and they re-traumatize the population as they remind everyone that the bombs dropping can start again at any time. It's a chilling and terrible effect. Everywhere else in Sudan, students, journalists, religious minorities, independent thinkers face crushing, life-threatening repression by the regime on a daily basis. We can do better for the people of Sudan. We need a more constructive approach, and you can help in 5 key ways. First, support efforts to revoke the executive order from January that eases U.S. sanctions. Second, push forward legislation for anti-money laundering measures and a modernized sanctions program, because the modernized sanctions program targets the assets of wrongdoers and the sectors of the economy that are most directly tied to conflict and corruption. Combining modernized sanctions with anti-money laundering tools is essential. Third, ensure U.S. government agencies that carry out these measures have the resources and direction they need. Fourth, press fencing to counter any money laundering by the Sudanese regime and its corporate network. Under Section 314A of the Patriot Act, FinCEN can request that banks and other financial institutions report on transactions that may have involved the Sudanese regime. Some of these activities might be declared primary money laundering concerns that FinCEN could further address. Fifth, urge the Trump administration to use the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act to place sanctions on corrupt Sudanese officials. Mr. McGovern, Mr. Holgren, and honorable members of the Commission, I thank you for the honor and the privilege of this opportunity to testify. I thank you for all of the previous opportunities I have had to testify before you and before the Honorable Tom Lantos himself. His focus on human rights and your focus today on human rights in Sudan has never been as important to the people of Sudan as it is now. By my repeated appearances before you, appearances before you are themselves evidence of the grave problems that persist despite despite our years of shared efforts and concerted attention. We can do and must do better together, and we will. The leadership of Congress is essential for anti-money laundering measures and modernized sanctions, and it will bring new US leverage with a regime that is not otherwise interested in ending war, protecting human rights, and building an inclusive representative government. You can show them why it is important. Thank you.